The young bees won't sting me for any reason at all unless I just press them against my skin. Okay, same with the bees out in your garden on the flowers. Unless you actually press them against your skin, you're not going to get stung. If any of you have a bee land on you here, don't touch it. It'll just leave you alone. If you try to brush it off, you could very likely get stung. It'll be your fault, not the bee's fault.
I've had it like crawl over.
Yeah, you can let them just crawl on you. Yes, exactly. So what I'm going to do now, as I see some bees looking at me, if those bees are looking at me, they are aware of my presence, okay? If they're aware of my presence and I do certain actions, then they will start a defense response. What we want to do is avoid the defensive response. I don't want to ever make the bees feel threatened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn their faces around with a little bit of smoke here. And when they stop looking at me, I no longer exist for them. You got to realize, to the honeybee, they have no idea that a human being exists, okay? They have no idea they're living in a box. They think they're living in a hollow tree, and if you give them the right cues, they realize they're being invaded, and they will seek the cues that tell them that a mammal's invading them, and then they'll aim for that mammal's eyes to try to get that mammal to leave them alone. I'm going to try to avoid those cues, okay? If I can get a volunteer, I have a black felt pen right here, and I could accentuate the dark eyes around the volunteer. If he stood here while I kick the hive, and you'll notice how all the bees will sting right around those big black eyes. You ready?
Sure, go for it.
Yes, sir. You just waving around? You want to say something?
She wants to volunteer.
Oh, volunteer. No, I'm just kidding. You don't want to get stung in the eyes. Being stung in the eyes is very painful. That's why bees aim to the eyes. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pull out a comb. This will be a honeycomb from the outside. And it's quite heavy. Okay, this comb is recently capped with white beeswax, which means that the bees have evaporated the water out of the nectar, that the honey is up to at least 83% sugar content, at which point that the yeast can no longer grow. Now, if we were to take this to the honey house, we would, without the bees, we'd take the bees off first. We'd take an uncapper and just take the cappings off. It's like the little bit of wax you put over a jar of jelly. And then we put these into a stainless steel centrifuge and we spin the honey out of the comb, leaving the cells intact so we can put the whole comb right back into the beehive. The bees can reuse the cell. That's the advantage of the movable frame hive. This hive was invented in 1856 by Dr. Lorenzo Langstroth. In short order, the smoker was invented by Moses Quimby, and somebody else invented the extractor. All those technologies were invented between 1850 and 1860, and that's the state of the art of our technology these days. We're working with 1800s technologies in beekeeping. Now, what I want you to notice is the bees don't mind being moved around. This does not give them illicit defensive behavior right here. If you know what you're doing, you can get away with a lot. And again, kids, don't try this yourselves unless you are with somebody who does know what they're doing. And you notice I don't do any jerky movements at all. If I did a jerky movement, the bees would fly out, and generally they're very polite. They give you first warning bumps. They'll bounce off my face or they'll bounce off my hands. And they're saying, you know what, I'm going to give you a warning, just back off and we'll leave you alone. Unfortunately, many beginning beekeepers don't learn to read those polite notices from bees, and they just keep plowing ahead and they get stung up. This, by the way, this comb of honey right here, we'd be able to extract about 5 pounds of honey from here. There's 3 pounds in a quart, so this would be roughly 1 quart and 2/3 of honey we can extract from this comb right here. This year, what beekeepers do, we breed bees that put on more honey than is necessary for their own survival. The extra honey we call surplus. That's the honey that we put into bottles and sell. During a drought year, there's not much surplus, so honey's very, very tight during this year. Do you make any honey to speak of? No. Most of us have made very little honey to speak of this year, so local honey is going to be tough to find in the stores this year. We're praying for an El Nino. Another very heavy comb, beautiful white capped comb. After several days, there's an airspace below the white beeswax capping right here, and that airspace diffuses out, and then the capping touches the honey below, and then it looks dark at that point. So you can tell this honey is fairly freshly capped right here. So I'm going to get closer now to the brood nest. Another thing here is there's no such thing as bravery involved with beekeeping. There's plenty of stupidity involved, potential for stupidity, but there's no bravery involved. If I had any fear whatsoever, I would be in the wrong place right now, okay? Bees really pick up if you're afraid. Okay, so here we have a brood comb right here. What I'm going to do here, I don't see the queen bee, I'm going to shake the bees off. It's not going to upset them. Okay, that does not elicit defensive behavior. And if you look closely, you'll be able to see little shiny larvae in here. And the larvae will be floating in a little pool of what looks like milk. That's because it is a milk. Like mammals do not feed their babies raw food. The mother ingests raw food, digests it, and then produces milk to feed the babies, the perfect food for the babies. Honeybees do the same thing. They don't feed their babies raw food. The nurse bees digest the pollen, and then they secrete a substance called jelly. It looks just like milk, and they feed their babies that milk. It's such a perfect food that the baby bee larvae grow at a phenomenal rate. If a baby bee larvae are only fed for 5 days until they reach full size. If a human baby, 7-pound human baby, were fed for 5 days and grew at the same rate, it would weigh more than an elephant in 5 days. You go from 7 pounds to the weight of an elephant in 5 days. Phenomenal growth. The queen bee is fed a diet of straight royal jelly. The queen bee can lay over her body weight in eggs every single day. Ladies, think about that. Laying over your body weight in eggs every single day, how much you would have to eat. It would be a perfect food. And the food is so perfect that the feces of the queen bee looks like water. It's completely digested. You can see some older larvae right here, the white grubs right here. So these larvae, again, are fed for only 4 days, and then the bees, the larvae pupate, and they go into a transition phase where they turn into an adult bee. The whole process takes about 20 to 21 days for this to go from an egg to an adult bee. And if we're lucky, I'm going to be able to show you in a second an adult bee emerging. Okay, a couple of bees are looking at me, so I just give them a little bit of smoke.
You think he's coming down?
You guys can ask questions while I'm doing this too.